Please go ahead.
Um, Basically, we studied about ultrasonic machining in this. Is it similar to drilling or is it similar to milling? Because the cutting edges would be different in both the cases, right? So is it can be used as a drilling operation. I can see that, like you can push directly into a material and the ultrasonic amplitude vibrations would cut off the or create the negative of the tool. But can it be used as a milling operation? Because the amplitude direction would be different in case of milling, right?
Yes, correct. You are correct. So it cannot be that way used for milling operation, as you are rightly mentioning that in that case when there is no vibration along the direction of milling, if you are trying to do on a horizontal plane and then you are trying to do milling on a surface XY plane, then obviously since your vibration in the Z direction, machining will not be done in the either X or Y direction. Correct, you are correct. So usually this is done for almost like sinking the tool inside the job. Okay. So you have to have your feet in the direction of the vibration.
Okay,
Okay.
sir. And what is the material of the tool usually? We have to machine the tool according to our
Yeah.
requirement, right? For
Yeah,
the design that.
shape of the tool has to be made according to the requirement of the cavity or hole you want to make or slot you want to make. Okay. Second thing is that as you go along on the today's lecture, you will realize that material should be such that it should not be brittle. Otherwise, it will undergo brittle fractures. So it should be ductile. So usually you use tool made of stainless steel. Okay, and the material which you try to machine is a brittle material like glass, quartz, or ceramic, other ceramic. Okay, so in the process, tool also gets damaged, so it has got tool has got certain life, and then after that you have to reshape it and again you use it.
Yeah, so the depreciation of the tool is usually higher compared to other machining methods, or like.
You see that as we have studied in case of abrasive machining, when the particle is impacted on any ductile material, the material removal is not much in case of ductile material, because as you can realize that when abrasive is hitting at the normal to the surface of a ductile material, then the shear force is going to be very, very little to remove the material in case of ductile material. Therefore, it gets deformed, compressed, but you do not lose much material. Material removal from the surface is not much, but yes, there could be some indentation is going to take place. And during the course of machining, what will happen that at every place the indentations in the tool is going to get uniformly it is going to take place. So the shape is going to slightly get deformed, but not the material removal from the wear of the tool will be minimal. Okay. Any
Okay.
other point would like to discuss? Anyone else would like to discuss? Okay, so I'm going to now start from the beginning of this slide. So as we had been discussing about ultrasonic machining, that this is basically a process in which a tool is pressed against the work, and there is a abrasive grids in the form of a slurry which is being placed or which is being slowly flown through the two surfaces of tool and the workpiece. And when the tool is hitting these grids at a with a certain force at high frequency, then in case of brittle material, it induces certain amount of micro cracks and induces brittle fracture. So because of these mechanical impacts of the grids, slowly controlled amount of material is going to get removed. Okay, and the slurry is slowly pushed through this, and it is taken out from one end. It is being put, and from other end it comes out, and all the material which are removed from the work in the form of microchips, those are all are getting removed. Okay, the typical amplitude of the tool is of the order of 10 to 50 micron, very small amplitude, and the frequency, as the name suggests, that it is ultrasonic. So just after, beyond the sonic frequency, that is beyond 20 kilohertz, it is being operated. So around in the range of around 90 to 25 kilohertz usually this is operated. Now we also described about the last time about the ultrasonic machine itself. So it has got a transducer which converts the electrical energy in the mechanical energy, in the mechanical vibration. So you have got a sinusoidal wave of the electric voltage oscillating at around 20 to 25 kilohertz range, and that is inducing or producing mechanical vibration oscillation through this transducer. Now, this is going to generate in the range of the 5 to 10 micron oscillation. This is further amplified with the help of a horn. So horn is a tapered shape like object, and made of certain material which has got the characteristics, good acoustic characteristics, and very good fatigue resistance, so that it doesn't crack because it is undergoing a lot of vibration. And this horn tends to concentrate the force as well as increase the mechanical amplitude at the free end of this horn. And at the free end of the horn, you have got the tool of the shape of which you want to machine on the workpiece. So it has got the positive shape of the machining zone you want to have the shape of the machining done on the workpiece. And you have got the slurry which is being flown through this, and it is again collected and it is recycled through that. And as the machining is being done, slowly, you have to provide certain amount of feed motion so that the tool goes on, the entire transducer and along with the transducer horn and tool, it goes down and goes on removing the material. So this is the basic construction of a ultrasonic machining machine. Okay. Now, we had also described about what type of different types of transducers are available. There are certain which are based on the piezoelectric effect, where the electrical signal is converted, oscillation is converted into mechanical vibration. These are quite efficient because they can convert very effectively the electrical power into the mechanical energy. So they have got the electromechanical conversion efficiency up to 96%. So the heat loss in the electrical coil through which this voltage is being applied, there is very little loss, so you don't need water cooling. However, the maximum power capability of such devices are in the within the limit of around 900 watts or so. And other type of transducer are based on the magnetic field. So when you apply oscillatory magnetic field in certain material like ferrous material, then what will happen, that the magnetic polarity is go on changing, and with that the length, mechanical length of the transducer will go on changing, and thereby you can create mechanical vibration. And this mechanical vibration is generated by applying a strong alternating magnetic field to certain metals, alloys, and ferrites. It is basically laminated stacks of nickel or nickel alloy sheets are there, and it has got electromechanical conversion efficiency in the range of 20 to 35% only. Compared to piezoelectric transducer, it is very low. So the device needs to be the remaining heat, remaining electrical power which is getting dissipated as a heat in the coil, that needs to be removed. So these are basically water cooled. So the water cooling removes the heat from that. However, it has got slightly higher power capabilities. You can get devices up to around 2.4 kilowatt or so. Okay, so you use this. Okay. And the important design aspect. So here you can see that this is the magnetostatic transducer. So this is the core, like laminated laminated sheets along which a electrical coil has been put, and when you are putting AC current, then it is going to induce magnetic field in this, and this magnetic field is going to induce certain amount of vibration. So this is going to this device is going to oscillate, induce certain amount of, produce certain amount of mechanical vibration, and this mechanical vibration is amplified with the help of this horn, and the entire force which is being generated is going to get concentrated at this tip. Okay. So one needs to the oscillation is going to be more effective when the natural frequency of this horn is matching with the applied oscillation frequency. So we are applying oscillation frequency of around 20 kilohertz. So we need to design the horn length in such a way for a given material that the natural frequency of this horn is matching with this, so that it can produce like a standing wave of vibration in this fashion. Okay, so this point is rigidly held in the machine. So you have got the node here, and there will be mechanical vibration. Amplitude is going to increase. This part is free, so there the amplitude is going to be maximum there. So it has got 1.5. You can say that it has got around 3/4 of an oscillation here. Similarly, this is going to oscillation, mechanical oscillation is going to induce in this, and there will be certain, this length is designed in such a way that at the free end you have got the maximum oscillations, amplitude of the oscillation. Okay. Now, in order to get this type of resonant conditions, you can put the conditions while you are trying to make is that the length of the L horn L should be equal to n/2 into lambda, where lambda is the wavelength of the like mechanical oscillation which is going to be created in this, and this is going to depend on the frequency which is going to be induced in this, and this frequency will be equal to velocity, sound velocity or acoustic velocity in this horn material divided by lambda. So lambda will be sound velocity divided by, or acoustic velocity in this material divided by the frequency. So this frequency is what we have applied. So it is in the range of around 20 kilohertz or so. And the velocity in this material, it is a sound velocity, sonic velocity is actually dependent on the mechanical properties of the material. So this is given by this expression. And you can see that the velocity actually depends on the Young modulus of the material, density of the material, horn material, and the Poisson ratio. So for a given material, you know what is the sonic velocity, what is the applied frequency which is being given here. So you can find out what is going to be the lambda in this, and your length of the horn should be chosen in such a way that it should accommodate this type of odd number of lambda by 2 length, okay, wavelength. In that, once you have chosen the length according to this, then what will have, you will have the maximum oscillation at the free end of the horn. And the mechanical amplification will depend on what is the diameter D1 divided by D2. So this will depend according to this dimensions D1 and D2, you can have the amount of mechanical amplification you can get. We have also discussed there are different shapes of horns at researched, and one is the exponential shape, another is tapered, and the third one is stepped. If you see the machining this type of accurately, this type of exponential shaped is a time consuming, and it is going to have more machining cost compared to tapered and the stepped one. So in industry, you will find most of the time this type of stepped horns are used. As I mentioned earlier, the material used for this should be such that it has got good acoustic property, as well as it should have very high fatigue resistance. It should not fracture because of the continuous oscillation. So the material for the horn used is a monel, that's nickel copper alloy, or titanium or stainless steel. So it should have good acoustic property, that it should produce good amount of vibration, mechanical vibration, while the sound wave, sonic wave is propagating, and highly resistance to fatigue cracking. Okay, so these materials meet these expected properties. So these are commonly used for making horn. Okay. Now, something about the slurry. What are the different types of slurry or the grit particles are grits are used? So commonly you have got the aluminum oxide. This is best suited for machining glass, ceramic, and germanium or silicon semiconducting material. Okay. Then you have got the boron carbide. These are relatively expensive, but best suited for cutting hard material like tungsten carbide, tool steel, and precious gems like diamond and ruby, other these type of stones. Okay. Then you have got the silicon carbide. This finds maximum application due to its hardness and life. So silicon carbides are SiC are also very hard material which is used. Diamond dust, for machining diamond and ruby, etc. You use this. Okay. Abrasive size is in the range of 200 to 2000 grits. Okay. And depending upon the type of grits you are using, you get surface roughness. Okay. So the smaller the value of grit, large is the size. So correspondingly, you are going to get large surface roughness on the machine after doing the machining. So if you are using grids of the size of 280, you get surface roughness on the job is in the range of around 0.5 micron. When you go smaller grid size, and when you the grid number is 800, so that time you are going to get surface roughness in the range of around 0.2 micron. So quite good finish you get. And mostly you used water-based slurry you use. Okay. So if you want to visualize the process here, so you can like model it in this fashion. This is the tool which is oscillating, and oscillating amplitude is A0, half amplitude is A0 by 2. And when this tool is moving from the extreme upward position and it is moving, so that time the velocity is going to be 0. As it is moving downwards, when it comes to the mid position, the velocity is going to be maximum. And then again, when it is proceeding, it is going down at the extreme lower point at the end of oscillation amplitude. It is oscillating amplitude, the velocity is again going to be 0. So when it is going to make maximum impact on the grid, if the grid size are of the order very close to half of this is the A of this order of A, then what will happen? That the tool is going to hit these grids when it has got nearly maximum velocity. So that is going to make that time very high impact. If it is slightly more or just equal to this height, then that time the tool, when it has got maximum velocity, that time it is going to impact these grids against this work. Okay. If it is very small size grids are there, then by the time the tool reaches, it is going to come to almost its extreme end of its oscillation. The velocity of the tool is going to be very, very small. So impact is going to be much less on smaller size of grid. On the other end, if it is too big again, then also it is not going to impart much mechanical impulse on that. So there is a certain effective size or optimum size of the grid size with respect to the amplitude of a tool oscillation when you are going to get very effective or maximum material removal. Okay. So that is depending upon the grid size and the amplitude of the oscillation of the machine, you need to select them. Okay, that either your amplitude is fixed, then your grid size should be very close to this half of the amplitude. Okay, so that is what one needs to look into. Okay. So there is a certain correlation between the size of the grid and the oscillation amplitude for effective machining. Okay. Yeah. Any question? No. In the machining process, as the tool moves downward, it impacts on grids and they are forced into tool and workpiece. As you can see that they both on the workpiece as well as on the tool, they are getting forced. Cracks initiates just below contact site. As indentation progresses, cracks propagate due to increase in stress. Ultimately, this leads to brittle fracture of the work material under each individual interaction site. There will be certain amount of brittle fracture or micro cracks is going to be generated. Eventually, the tool comes to the end of its strike, impacting all grids in between tool and workpiece in contact. So when it is going to come up to the extreme end, whatever are there in between the tool and workpiece, all of them the tool is going to cause, is going to apply the impact. Okay. Tool material should be such that indentation by the abrasive grids doesn't lead to brittle fracture. So it is very important for the tool material. It should not undergo brittle fracture. Therefore, tools are made of tough, strong and ductile materials like steel, stainless steel and other ductile metallic alloys. Okay. So the tool material should not undergo brittle fracture. So you use tough, strong and ductile material. And the examples are steel, stainless steel, that is the steel with normal mild steel, you can consider, or carbon steel, stainless steel and other. In this, you can also use the tool steel, which are very hard material, having certain amount of alloying elements in that. And other ductile metallic alloys you can use. Okay. Now, if you see experimental results of machining material removal rate, then in terms of tool force, then the amplitude of vibration, then the grid size, then the ratio of the workpiece and tool strength, then the grid concentration in slurry. So what is the material removal rate, which depends on the various parameters. So the various parameters in this ultrasonic machining are your tool force, with which the oscillation, this tool is being forced against the workpiece and the grid, its oscillation amplitude, mechanical amplitude of the vibration, then the grid size, what is the frequency, and with respect to the workpiece, what is the tool strength? So this is the lambda is the workpiece and tool strength ratio. C is the grid concentration in the slurry. What is the amount of slurry? What is the amount of grid particles, grids in the slurry? So that concentration also is going to affect the material removal rate. Okay. So experimentally, it has been seen, and empirically, you can also see that how material removal rate is going to going to depend on these process parameters. So with the tool force, the for a given amplitude of oscillation, the material removal rate is going to go on increasing, and at certain, beyond certain force, it is going to saturate and again tends to decay. And this decay could be because of the breakage of the grids, because as you go on increasing the force, then what will happen, that there is a chance that the grid itself, due to impact, may fracture and break. In that case, because of that, the material removal rate beyond certain force of the tool is going to saturate, and further increasing of the force, it will tend to reduce. And as you go on increasing the amplitude, you find that the material removal rate also goes on increasing. Okay. Now, with the amplitude for a constant frequency of oscillation, you can see that the material removal rate tends to increase. And as you increase the frequency, then you have your material removal rate also tends to increase, as has been shown over here also. With the increase of frequency, your material removal rate goes on increasing. Now, frequency range could be in the range of 19 to 25 kilohertz or so. In commercial market, you get the system 19 to 25 kilohertz. And when you have got the grid diameter, again the grid diameter, as you go on increasing the grid diameter, then the material removal rate is going to increase, and then again it is going to saturate and starts falling down when the grid diameter becomes comparable to. So the maximum is going to be when your grid diameter is comparable to the amplitude of oscillation, Thereafter, it is going to again further reduce. Okay. With respect to strength of the workpiece, with workpiece strength by the tool strength, when you try to have more workpiece strength, if it is increasing, then obviously material removal rate is going to reduce. Okay. And with the slurry concentration, you'll find that the material removal rate tends to increase. And depending upon the type of slurry, you can have some more material removal for harder grades. So with respect to alumina Al2O3, this B4C, so the boron carbide, those are more harder, so harder material, so you get slightly higher material removal rate when you are using these grids with respect to your alumina. Okay. Now, we try to see the different attributes and applications and limitations of USM. So, normal hole tolerance, when you are trying to drill holes, then you can get the tolerance of around 7 micron. So, quite good accuracy you can get. And surface finish, this RA value could be in the range of around 20 micron to 700 micron, depending upon the grid size you are using. A specific material removal rate on brittle material is in the range of around 0.018 millimeter cube per joule of energy. So ultimately, you are drawing power from the in the form of electricity. So if you try to find out how much energy is being consumed and what is the material removal is being done per unit of energy, then you find that it is in this range. Okay. Penetration rate could be in the range of 5 millimeter per minute, which is very slow. Okay, so slowly you are going to do in a controlled manner. Otherwise, brittle fracture is going to generate uncontrolled crack in the workpiece and going to damage the workpiece. So you, because of this controlled fracture, the material penetration rate of the tool is in this range 5 millimeter per minute. Okay, very slowly it is penetrating in. This is used for machining hard and brittle metallic alloys, semiconductors like silicon wafers and silicon slabs, glass, ceramic, carbides, tungsten carbides, etc. You can do the machining. Used for machining round, square, irregular shaped holes and surface impressions. Okay, so as one of you had asked that where this machine USM is used, so it is used mainly for making different types of different shapes and some surface impression if you want to create there you use. Okay. Machining, wire drawing, punching, or small blanking dies. Okay, so for wire drawing, you want to make very small holes, so you can make on hard material like diamond or tungsten carbide. You can make holes for drawing the wire. Okay, and punching or small blank dies you can make with that. What are the limitations? So limitations are that you have got the relatively low material removal rate, high tool wear can take place, and low hole depth you get. And the hole depth is also limited because you have to pass the slurry through that in between the tool and workpiece. So because of that, the whole depth which you can generate with this type of machining process by this machining process is also limited. Okay. Now we want to understand whatever the experimental observation we have seen, and then we will like to see and correlate through certain modeling. Now, modeling such machining process is not very accurate. Modeling is not so simple, but then with making certain approximation and certain assumption, one can correlate the machining force as well as strength of the material which you are machining, and other process parameter like amplitude, the oscillation frequency, concentration of abrasive grids in slurry, and what is the frequency. You can try to make a relation, you can establish a relation between a material removal rate and different process parameter. So let us see, assume that the grids are identical, grids are there having the average grid of diameter dg. So dg is your grid diameter. And these grids are having certain uneven surfaces on its uneven portion, and these are we call it as a bulge. So these are all bulge over the grid particle. So the grid particle have got the irregular like bulges like this, and we assume that in the model that the local spherical bulges are there whose diameter dB is equal to mu times d square g, where mu is a constant of proportionality. So your bulging which is there on the surface, its diameter is related with the diameter of the grid by equation 1. That is, it is diameter dB is equal to mu times d square g. Now, in brittle fracture, the volume of material which is removed per indentation of depth delta W, we had seen in case of abrasive machining of brittle material, that it is a hemispherical volume which is getting removed. Okay, so this is hemispherical. The radius is decided by the opening of this indentation here, 2x. So so this volume of the material because of the micro crack or micro fracture which is getting removed is hemispherical of diameter equal to indentation width 2w. So the volume of this, the capital gamma B is equal to 2 by 3 pi x cube. And as you can recall from our previous lecture, that this x is related like this: x square is equal to diameter of this bulge into depth of indentation which is it is creating. So x square is equal to dB into delta W, where delta W is the depth of indentation and dB is the bulge diameter. And the material removal rate is going to be equal to this gamma B into number of grid particles in between the tool and workpiece, and what is the frequency of oscillation, that is the per second how many times it is making impact. So material removal, you can get the volume per unit time, you can get from this which is getting removed. So it is going to be 2 by 3 pi dB into delta W on 3 by 2 into N into F. So if I know here, if I know what is the grid size, so I can correlate with this and what is the mu, then I can find out what is the value of dB. I know from the slurry concentration what is the value of N, so that N I can find out from the slurry concentration, and F is my machining parameter. So N and F is known from there. Hello, I'm in a lecture, so can we talk in the evening? Because in the afternoon also I have got a seminar class. So yeah, at around 5 o'clock. Yeah, 6 is okay. Yeah, after 5, up to 5, I will be busy. Okay, beyond after that, anytime. Okay, okay, fine. Yeah. Excuse me. So now what we have to do, we have to correlate N with the slurry concentration and how much indentation depth it is going to make. This we have to find out. So of course this will depend what is the force on with which these grids are impacting on the workpiece against the workpiece, and what is the strength of the hardness or the strength of the material. So depending upon that, the depth of indentation, this is going to be CD, the depth is going to be determined. So in the modeling, the entire exercise is going to be done in order to find out what is the value of indentation in terms of your various process parameter and what is the value of N. Now, the volumetric concentration of grit in slurry is, you can have the C per unit volume. Okay, so you can know that how much concentration of the slurry, grit, abrasive grit has been mixed in water to make the slurry. And we assume that area of the tool is A. Now we have to find out in this area A, how many number of grit particles are there. Now we find that spacing between tool and work when they are pressing against the grid is going to be of the order of diameter of the grid dz. So the volume of the grids will be, how much volume will be? A, that's area of this tool, into dg into C is the concentration. So the volume of the grids inside this is going to be this much. And this will be equal to, each grid is going to have volume of pi by 6 dg to the power q. So this is the volume of the each grid. And if you assume that that there are n number of grids, so this entire volume of the grids will be A dg into C is going to be equal to n pi by 6 dgq. So from this relation, I can find out what is the value of n, that is number of grids in between the tool of area A and the workpiece. So n is going to be 6 into AC divided by pi dg square. So if I know the value, what is the area of the tool, what is the volumetric concentration of grid we are mixing in the slurry, and if you know the grid size diameter, I can find out what is the value of n we can get. So equation number 4 gives you the value of n. So n is determined. Now our task is to find out what. Yes.
Sir, how this n pi by 6 dg cube is coming? Can you explain once?
This is the volume is 4 by 3 pi r cube, no? So if you put r is a dg by 2, then you get this. This is the spherical shape we are assuming. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Now the tool and the work pressing each other against grid will deform inversely proportional to their strength. Like higher the strength, lower is going to be depth of indentation. So assume that the strength of the workpiece is sigma W and the strength of the tool is sigma T. So the indentation depth in the tool and divided by indentation depth inside in the workpiece is going to be inversely proportional to their respective strength. So that will be equal to sigma W by sigma T. And we say that this is, we specify is as a lambda. So since your strength of the tool is going to be more than the strength of the workpiece, so the lambda is going to be less than 1. Usually it is less than 1. Okay. Now, total depth of indentation created by this tool is going to be delta, will be delta T plus delta W, where delta T is the indentation in the tool plus indentation in the workpiece. Okay, we are concerned to find out what is the value of indentation depth in the workpiece. Now, during machining, the impulse of force on the tool and work would be balanced. Okay, and now we try to find out that up to how this tool is impacting on this grid. Now, when this tool is oscillating during and it is coming to maximum speed here. So during this cycle, when it is having maximum speed, so after during this time, it is going to make maximum impact on the grid, and it is going to compress the grid against the workpiece, and certain amount also it is going to go into the tool material. So this is the scenario is going to take place when it is the tool is reaching to extreme end at the bottom, in the lower side, and it is the extreme upward when it is in the upper extreme side where the velocity is 0, and then again it is going to come, velocity is going to be maximum, and then it is going to make impact on the workpiece on the grid, and grid is going to be praised. So only during a small time in this quarter cycle, this is good in this quarter cycle, the tool is going to impact on that, is going to put certain amount of mechanical impulse. Afterwards, it is going to retract back, so it will be coming back and going up again, it is going to hit. So during tool oscillation, when it is moving from its mid points towards workpiece, it engages and presses grids only during a short time tau, a part of 1/4 of the cycle, T/4 cycle. It is going to engage and impart impulse. From the above figure, one can write that this total depth of indentation delta by A, so the A is this amplitude, is going to be equal to tau by T/4. Okay, so this is the delta and this is your total A. So these are going to be equal. So delta by A is going to be tau by T/4. From here, you get that tau by T is equal to total indentation by 4A. Now here A is your this amplitude, half of A0. So A0 is the total amplitude from top peak to 2 peaks here, and it is A is this amplitude. Okay. So average impulse by tool impinging on grid is going to be average. Part will be half into F max. This is force, maximum force into time, impulse time tau. So this is going to be the impulse on the grid, where this F max is maximum indentation force per grid, abrasive grid. So this is the maximum force. So if we assume that maximum force on the grid is F max, then this is going to be, and since it is engaging and then during this during this course, you can see that it is having maximum impact is going to be here, and then it is slowly going down. So if you take the average part, then the half is coming because we are taking a average value in this time domain of tau. Okay. Now the force F with which tool is fed on n number of grids against workpiece during one oscillation cycle time t is going to be total force on n grids will be per grid into number of grid divided by this time t. So this is going to give me that in one cycle time t, what is the force applied? Okay, so from 6, if we put these values, then you get that V is equal to F is equal to this much. Okay, where tau by T has been replaced by this factor. So you can find out the applied force is going to be now equal to what is the indentation depth, what is the amplitude, and what is the maximum force, and what is the value of N. Okay. Now this maximum force is with that the indentation is going to be created. So we try to equate the maximum force with the strength of the material and depth of indentation. Now the flow strength of workpiece to fracture through plastic deformation is equal to your of the workpiece is your sigma W. Okay. So, and from this we can find out that the maximum force needed to cause indentation of radius x by each abrasive grid is going to be your maximum force is going to be F max is going to be pi x squared delta sigma W. And so this is the area and this is your stress. Okay, the strength of the material, or you can say, so this is going to be the maximum force. So your stress or strength of the material multiplied by the area. So in order to generate any micro crack, my force should be at least this much. Okay. So once you get this, then I can find out from F max from equation 8, I can put this and I can get this expression. Okay. So from here, I can see that I can now find out what is the value of delta if I take this your delta W outside, then you can find out this is you can express this as a form of lambda. Okay, so all these things when we put, you find that your indentation depth inside the workpiece is going to be given by this relation. Okay, now we have found out the value of indentation depth in the terms of amplitude of oscillation. What is the value of F, that is the force applied. So this is my process parameter. Area is the tool. Area C is the slurry concentration. Mu is again correlation between the constant of proportionality. This constant term we know. Strength of the material, if you workpiece, if you know, and what is the ratio of the strength of the tool and workpiece lambda, if you know, then I can find out what is the indentation depth. And now we know what is the material removal rate. So put the value of N, F, and all those things there, you get the expression this. So this is going to give you the correlation between material removal rate and the process parameters which we are using. Okay. Okay, so in the form of tool pressure, also you can write it. So you can get these equations to get the material removal rate. Okay, and if you see that the material removal rate is having a direct correlation with the grid size, increasing with the grid size, increasing with the frequency of oscillation, again increasing with weak dependence of the slurry concentration, area of the two, force, amplitude, and what is the constant term, constant of proportionality relating the bulge diameter with the diameter of the grid size. And it is also inversely correlated with the strength of the workpiece. More the workpiece strength, less is going to MRR. Okay, so you get that questions. And also depends on the ratio of the strength of the tool and workpiece. So here again the process parameters, those are summarized here. So their effects have been summarized here. And at the end, from the NPTEL lecture, I have put certain quiz test, what is there in that. So you can just go through these, and the answers are also, there are some problems are also, and these are available in the NPTEL lecture series if you go through the website. So for your convenience, I have just put those here. Okay, and the answer to the quiz and the solution of the problems are given here. So you can just work out these for your exercise. Okay. I have also sent a set of questions, numerical problems based on water jet machining, abrasive water jet, and ultrasonic machining today in the morning. So you do this exercise and solve these problems once to get familiar with the type of like exercise, numerical problem you need to do while you appear for the test. Okay. Now, if you have got any question, you may ask me. I will be happy to reply and answer to your questions.
Sir, can you go to the slide of the first slide of modeling? Basically, we started the MRR derivation.
Yeah.
Sir,
Yes.
in this, in like how x square was equal to dB.
Oh, if you go to the abrasive jet machining, no, so you can find out this value easily, no. How it is related? So your this x square is going to be equal to dB by 2 square minus AC square, and AC square is going to be equal to AD minus CD square. Okay. So just
Yes.
by from this triangle, you can just find it out, and
Okay,
you neglect the terms which are square terms of indentation depth, because the indentation depth is very, very small. So neglect those square term, you get the value of x square from there. Okay.
Okay, sir. And sir, can you just amalgamate all the whole derivation, because it's quite lengthy, right? So can you just go through just a single time?
In single?
Like in a single succession, can you just overview the whole derivation of MRR?
Yeah. I'll just tell you that once you get this value, no, once you correlate this, that this is the volume per grid, and then number of particles between the workpiece and the tool area A, and what is the frequency, then what you need to determine is the value of N, and then N is correlated with what is the volumetric concentration in the slurry. Okay, so that is what we have derived. So N value is known from this equation number your 6 here, which is nothing but you just, this is the volume. The assumption is that what is the volume? So the volume is going to be the number of grids which are there in this volume, and this volume is area multiplied by the gap between here, and gap is going to be approximately equal to diameter of the grid. Okay, and what is the volumetric concentration is C. So this many this much grids are, this is the volume of the grid volume here, and each grid volume is equal to this much. So n times this is going to be the equal to this. From here you get the value of n. So you are determining the value of n. F is known. Now I have to find out, and dB is correlated with dg. So dg is known, mu is known. So these are all given to you. What we are going to find out, which is not known, is the indentation, how much it is making in the workpiece. So in order to determine this, we are trying to, now this is going to be dependent on what is the force we are applying and what is the strength of the workpiece. Okay, so this, and then while modeling the entire process, we are trying to model that when it is going to put the impact impulse. So this is the time for which it is going to make the impulse, and this is going to, during this impulse, what is the work done, etc. We are trying to find out, and from there we are finding out your delta W. Okay, so the entire exercise is just to determine the value of what is the depth of indentation in the workpiece. Okay, so that is what has been done here, that this is the impulse duration for which it is impacting. Then we are trying to correlate with the total force, and then from there this is going to be the total force is maximum force for each indentation of indentation diameter 2x. It is going to be this much, and we are equating from this relation. We are putting the value of F max in terms of your strength of the material. So the entire exercise of mechanical force imparted by the tool is now correlated with the strength of the material by equation number 9. Okay, so these are going to be balanced. What is the force it is going to give, and when the crack is going to be generated, when the maximum force is going to be equal to the pi x square into the stress of the strength of the material. So you equate here with this, and then you correlate with the entire force, the total force which you are applying, and then you just do the certain mathematical steps, and you get the MRR. Okay, so what I will suggest all of you, that you yourself try to derive once to get familiarized with this. Okay, fine. And then ultimately you see the functional dependent. Obviously in the test or in any exam, you are not supposed to remember, mug up these equations. Nobody will expect you to remember these expressions. Okay, only thing is you have to apply these concepts in finding out, solving certain numerical problems. Okay, some situations you have to solve. Okay, fine.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And also, you were mentioning some attributes in a slide where you mentioned the abrasive grid size,
Yeah.
abrasive size.
Yeah.
Sir, their number was, it was just written, if I remember, it was just 200 to 2000 grit. So what is actually the size of a grit? Like, is it some?
Okay. Yeah, so amplitude, the grid size is the abrasive size in the range of around 15 to 50 micron. Okay. The diameter
Okay.
is,
In an earlier slide, it was just written 200 to 2000 grit. So is there some?
Yeah, so this is the grid size, this 2000 grid size, this number is correlated with the micron. Okay.
Okay.
These are, if you see, no, this is like per inch, how many, if you lay them grid in one particular length, no, so how many these grids are going to be laid in a straight manner per unit length. So if you have got unit length, like let us suppose 1 centimeter, and if you are able to accommodate 200 of them, then the size diameter will be approximately 1 centimeter divided by 200. So it will be some value. Now there are, if 2000 number means in that unit length, you are able to put 2000 of those particles in a series. So 1 by that is going to be what will be the actual size. Would you follow that?
But sir, like that specific dimension should be fixed, na? Like you mentioned centimeter. 1 centimeter may you will either place 200 or
So
2000.
this is the grid size is approximately relative to the per unit per inch length. Okay, so these are the
Okay.
very old dimensions. British units that time they were being used. So they were being used with this
Inch.
thing.
Okay. Essentially, this is 200 or 2000, 200 to 2000 grid per inches, if I
Per
am
inches.
not mistaken.
Yes,
Yeah.
approximately.
Okay.
So if you go to
Yeah.
the website, no, you will find the
Hmm.
correlation, the grid number with the micron or inch. Okay.
Okay, sir. And this RA is the, what is RA here, sir?
RA is the surface roughness. Surface roughness.
Surface roughness in the terms of microns, like
Micron. Like if we have got machined the surface with this, no. So if you take the job out, because the machining has been done by micro cracks, so there will be certain amount of non-uniformity on the surface. So depending upon what is the grid size, you get depending upon that what is the surface roughness you are getting in terms of micron size.
Okay, so is this the length of the irregularities between the dimensions? Say if the dimension was 20.
Yeah, depth.
Okay.
Depth, because your the grids are hitting and it is creating certain indentation in the depth,
Normally. Yeah.
normal to the surface. So that is the depth. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So can you tell me where did you send the question, sir? Is it on NPTEL, sir?
This is the NPTEL. From there, I have just picked up and attached here. And now today morning, I have sent in the lecture. If you see the MS Team lecture, there you go and see the files. In the file, I have uploaded all the lectures till I have delivered today, and the some set of questions, also exercise question in MS Team, non-traditional manufacturing process. Go to the lecture, and in that lecture, you open the files. In that file, I have uploaded. Okay. Now, on next Monday, I'll be taking class for 2 hours. So on that day, I would like to have some in the process of continuous test. I would like to have schedule a test on Monday, next Monday. Okay. So I will send a mail to you people, and that will be based on multiple choice questions, including certain numericals. So because of that, I'm suggesting you people to do certain practice so that you can attempt those numericals as well. Okay.
Sir, the syllabus will be till today.
Syllabus will be till today. Yes. All abrasive and water jet machining. Water jet, abrasive water jet, abrasive jet, and USM. Fine. Oh, I have.
Also, sir, I wanted to ask, how is the horn connected to the tool? Like,